Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So we know you could be anywhere in the world, and we appreciate you being here with us at Black Women Revolt Against Domestic Violence. Some of you attended our DVAM, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month event earlier in the month, and we thank you for that. But domestic violence awareness has to be more than just one day or one month. And so we thank you for being here with us today. I have two beloved friends and community members, and they actually serve on our advisory board here at Black Women Revolt Against Domestic Violence, who will be sharing their story about a loved one that they lost. And we will talk a little bit about how they experienced that loss, the supports that they received during that time, and what they're doing now to advocate for survivors as a result of that. We're also going to just kind of hear a little bit about them and their story and their loved one. And we'll share a little bit of personal things towards the end. But I'm going to go on and introduce Ayesha Lewis, who is wow, when Black Women Revolt Against Domestic Violence started, she actually joined in before I did, before it was an actual organization. She is a on-screen person in our 2-minute video clip about Black women revolt against domestic violence and really trying to raise the narrative around Black women who are experiencing domestic violence and how they tend to get lost in the shuffle, and also how the story may be a headline for a day, but what happens when that headline disappears? The horrific things that they have to live through in terms of court, in terms of rebuilding, and in terms of going forward. And so Aisha was one of the voices in the Black Women Revolt 2-minute documentary video that included the other two co-founders of Black Women Revolt, Jafria Morris and her sister Lentice. And I saw that video and said, so what's next? What we gonna do? Because this was nice. It was 2 minutes, but honestly, it's 2 minutes that changed my entire life. In addition to Nicole Minnis, who's also here, whose sister um, was killed by her partner. And again, we are childhood friends, neighbors, and the impact that that had on my life in bringing me into this work. And so when I saw Aisha on video, I mean, I literally, if there's ever a fangirl experience, I was like, Harpo, who these people? Where are they? Because we got work to do. And so here we are. I'm going to pass it over to Aisha. If you can tell us a little bit about yourself and the loved one that you lost as your mom, and share a little bit about your story and her story and how we are coming together now as advocates.
So I'm Ayesha Lewis, born and raised in Berkeley, California, mother of two amazing young men, eldest of four children, and an educator. I'll say that. So that's who I am in a nutshell. And so I'm here because of the loss of my mom, Perla Ann Lewis. Um, and I don't know how much of the story you want me to talk about. So
I would say you can give the highlights of whatever you feel comfortable with and definitely talk about navigating what happened after and where we are today.
okay. So in May of 2010, excuse me, I received a phone call from the facility where my mom was staying, and they basically told me that she had not come home the night before. And at the time, she took a lot of medication, and so for her to miss her taking her medication definitely was a red flag. And so I received a phone call saying she hadn't made it home. Now, prior to that, the day before, I had had a conversation with her, and very brief conversation. And then she called my sister the night before. And then, I get this phone call saying that she had not made it back to take her medication. So at that point, and I often tell this story, because my mom had struggled with years of addiction, her not showing up, I would say, did not necessarily raise a red flag, excuse me, at the beginning because, she may go a day or two and then she would resurface, or she did have a lot of health issues. And so she might have been in the hospital, couldn't get to the phone. So initially at first it was not a red flag. So I called my sister, and again, so there's four of us. And I called the sister right below me and told her, I just got this phone call. And so we talked about it, but we decided not to tell my brother because we didn't want him to get, worked up in a hysteria and things of that sort. And so so she didn't show up that particular day. The next morning, I made a phone call into the facility, and oh, and I'm sorry, they initially said because she didn't show up, we have to do a missing persons report, right? So that's just our protocol. So I was like, okay. So the next morning when I called, I called them, hey, I'm checking in, where's my mom? Yada, 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 thinking she's resurfaced. And so it was like a really eerie moment where the person I was talking to basically said, well, let me give you the phone number of the person who's handling your mom's missing person report, the missing persons case. And so I was like, okay. Now, at the time, I was like an avid 48-hour, like I used to watch 48 hours all the time. I thought I was like a sleuth and I knew, what was going on. And so I genuinely say that because I feel like in those moments, there were certain feelings that I had that were like, okay, something's just not right. Like, it's just something not right about this. So they gave me the number for the detective who's over my mom's missing case. And I called him. And so another strange situation was when I called him, he immediately, like I called and I said, "Hi, this is Aisha Lewis. I'm calling about my mom's missing." He started badgering me with like all these questions. Well, where have you been? We've been trying to get in contact with you for the last for all night, and I had no number. Like he just kept going on, and I was like, "Sir, they gave me your number. I'm calling about this missing, about my mom's case." And so he immediately said, well, where are you? Like, where are you? And can you secure? I said, I'm on my way to work. He said, well, can you secure a conference room there? And so I was like, okay, okay. Like it was just, strange. Um, and so I went to work. Now I will say this, let me back up. The night before this, um, I was watching the news. And to be honest, after my mom, I no longer watch the news. Like it's triggering for me. But we were watching the news, and all over the news was this case about a 20 to 30-year-old Hispanic or white woman that they found in the Embarcadero. And so as I'm watching the news, I was like, oh my God, that is like people are so evil. That's so like that's so disheartening. How could someone do something like this? But again, they're reporting it as a 20 to 30-year-old Hispanic or white woman. And so then I go to bed, get up the next morning, call him. So fast forward to that part. When he says get the conference room, I go to my supervisor and I said, there's something about this is just like the everything's just not feeling right for me. And have you watched the news? And so she was like, yeah, I've been watching the news. I said, well, did you see about the case with the 20-year-old that they found in the suitcase? And so she was like, girl, you don't have anything to worry about. Like your mom's not 20 and she sure ain't white or Hispanic. And I was like, oh, you know what? You're right. So for a moment, even though in my gut, I really felt that that was my mom, I let myself kind of go down the road of, you know, the news that they got it right. That's not my mom. And so we move forward to like hours later, they show back up. Now, I'll back up and say this. My mom was with her at the time ex-boyfriend for 18 months. And I often tell people 18 months, in 18 months, my entire life shifted upside down and my mom no longer is here, right? I mean, in a year and a half, literally, my life changed. And during the time that they were together, there were times where he was abusive towards her, but of course, she would tell us all these random stories. And there's one particular story that I always like to shine a light on. She told us that some people in San Francisco had robbed her. And when they were trying to grab her purse off, like something happened to her shoulder. So she had like all these injuries and things of that sort. My brother, and of course we believe the story, my brother gets to San Francisco and begins to do his own like investigation, going down the streets of San Francisco where she's from, looking for someone. Did you all see, showing her picture, she said that she was robbed, who did this to my mom, blah 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 blah, absolutely going down the whole rabbit hole. Of course, believing what she's saying, right? But of course we then found out that it was her, at the time, ex-boyfriend, who was abusing her. Several stories where she had injuries, was abused, but never once, like, really saying that it was him or pushing it off to someone else. A very interesting part of my mom's story is that at one point she ended up in the hospital, and the investigators came to investigate her DV case, and he was sitting in the hospital with her. So of course, what does she do? She names some other random name and says, whoever XYZ did this to me, and they like they're doing this investigation while he's in the room. So of course she's not going to be as forthcoming as you would think, and say, well, it was him that did XYZ. So those are like the things that kind of led up to so many more stories, but that kind of led up to what happened. So back to the story. Three detectives come in. We go into a conference room and they begin to ask me so many questions. I think I was in there for like an hour and a half, of just, where she's been, just, all the questions that they ask. And so after, an hour and a half, first of all, I'm in here with three detectives, so I'm really starting to get a little perturbed. And I say to them, like, what is this all about? What are we doing? Like, you keep asking me all these questions, like, what's going on? And so he turns over a picture of my mom's ex-boyfriend. And before I lost it completely, I said, well, how do you know? And he said the dental records. Then I lost it. I'm talking about completely just unhinged. And I'm saying that because most people that know me, I'm not like that. Like, I'm for the most part very bubbly, very whatever. But I mean, just the picture of him sent me over the edge. And so from that point on, I mean, it was just, I would say it's just been devastating, devastating to say the least. I don't even know if there are words that you can really come up with to describe the type of devastation, the type of hurt, the type of pain that we have had to go through. And not to mention that we definitely had to go through it in the public eye because of the circumstances around the situation, for my mom and what happened. And so not only was it, in the public, um, but it was also like our family. We have a huge village, and I mean, I feel like the Bay Area was really rocked by this situation. If I'm not mistaken, even at the time, and now Beverly's on here because I'm probably going to mess it up, but there was like a stretch of time where there were no DV cases, and then my mom happened and it like broke whatever their stretch was. So even in that, it was just like extra heaviness on the situation of losing my mom. And so short, like days after, and I mean the story is so complicated, so long. It's we would be here for hours. But shortly after, like 4 or 5 days, against my family's knowing, I decided to show up in jail to see Lee because he was so disconnected that they brought him in for questioning. and they let him go. And then he came back and walked himself back in, um, to only get arrested. So it was like he was so disconnected that he didn't even think, oh, like anything. He pushed off that it was someone else that had done it. And so at the time, and it was like roughly about 4 days later, um, I told the detectives, hey, I'm going to go visit him in jail. And and so, of course, they couldn't coach me or anything like that, but I just wanted to let them know, like, this is something I feel like I have to do, for myself in order for me to continue to move through this. And my family was like, I don't think you should do it, da 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 da. So I go see him, and the whole purpose of me going to see him, was to let him know that no matter what you did, and you thought that you were getting away with it because you put her in the suitcase, you tossed her into the Embarcadero. I've said before, every time we went there, except for maybe once. And I mean, we've been there several times. We've never seen the rocks that she was like found. It's always the water is too high. We just never saw the area, except for maybe one time, I think one or two times. Um, and so he just thought that he was gonna get rid of her, and so for me to just process what I was going through, I needed to let him know that, no matter what you've done to my mom, like you're never gonna get rid of her, because every time, and every, people are my witness. I said every time you show up to court, you're gonna see my face, and when you see my face, you're gonna see her. Because most of the time, people say I look like her anyway. However, I just want you to know that it's not over. And I mean to tell you, we went 8 years before the trial, and Beverly knows I was there you hold the court case, because I'm stuck in traffic right now. Like, I don't even go in there. Like, I was very adamant about that, and so I wanted him to know that, that I was gonna be there, and that I forgave him. That was the major part for me. Now, I cried the entire time. I was an emotional wreck. I kept asking him why hadn't he called. He was like one of those like obsessive boyfriends who would just like call, 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 call. I can't get in contact with her, and call me like 75 times. And that's not even an exaggeration. Like, he just was overly aggressive with his like trying to communicate. And so, I asked him, why hadn't you called or said anything? And of course, he wanted to blame someone else did this. Where, when I get out of here, I'm gonna find out. But just the disconnect of like, if you're incarcerated, clearly they have evidence of something. So how are you just so disconnected? And so, yeah, I told him, no matter what, I forgive you, but I want you to know that you will see my face every single time. And I held my word every single time, no matter what. I was there. And so, so when it comes to that, then I looked up, and I felt like the entire world was surrounding us as a family. It very much so. I feel that our experience was so different, than what other people experience. We fell in love, and also didn't like the DA at times, but that, it just kind of was a thing because it was going so long. But I mean, genuinely, to this day, I still text, the lead investigator who was on the case. He checks in with me, and not even 2 weeks ago, the DA, who tried my mom's case, still checks in. Beverly's on here, but I have what I call my, San Francisco Angels. They know that I call them this. That, um, literally, I mean, if I was there, they were there. One of them was there every single time. And so I don't know, you just don't often get that type of support and those types of experiences, even with the investigators, that are working the case. So, as far as he goes, he was sentenced to 25 to life. Um, we did our witness impact statements. I allowed my children to come in. At the time, they were fairly young, but they experienced all that we experienced as well. And so I wanted to give them an opportunity to be able to speak to their feelings. And I mean, there was not a dry eye in the courtroom, and not a, I don't think there was an open seat, because the domestic violence community, my family, for sure, and I call my friends family, they're family. If you're a friend, you're family. But like my family showed up, but I mean the San Francisco DV community showed out as usual, and again, like I said, it's something that I think is special. That we were able to experience such a great loss. My mom was the only child to my grandmother, and so she had a broken heart. She passed away a few years later from it, and I think that I would hope that my mom was proud of
She was.
how we
It
honored
was.
her, how
She
we
put
honored
it
her in
in,
her
Ayesha.
life. Yeah. So yeah, I just hope that, I know that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself, but um I just hope that even though we were going through all that we were going through, um that we still showed up and we still advocated, and even with the DA, like sometimes I know he was probably like, maybe he's used to it. I don't know, it was my first time. But I mean, there were times where we were like, listen, Mike, I don't know what you're in there doing. However, you're just letting them drag you around here. Like, what are we doing? And I'm saying that because, like I said, it was 8 years before the trial started, um, and so I, I don't even like saying his name, but my mom's ex-boyfriend. I mean, I'm not making it up. Beverly knows this.
Yes.
He dragged it through mental health court, appeals. Let me act the fool in court, and so we're going to postpone it. I mean, whatever he could do, all the way until the end, like literally until the end, you know, showing out, like just doing strange stuff in court, trying to like I said, I really feel like the whole situation was special because I was a witness, and typically as a witness you're not allowed to sit in court, but there I was like, listen, there is no way possible you are going to not allow me to sit there. And so it was hard because I was told like I could sit there, but I couldn't react much. So anytime I would feel like I'm going to cry or I'm going to, like, what, I had to walk out, get myself together, come back in. However, I mean, I was able to, to testify and be there at the same time. So I had to do, what it is that I needed to do. But I mean, up until the last day, like he still was, I consider them family. Like just he was gaslighting so much. It was just ridiculous. Oh gosh, it was so ridiculous. So that is the gist, I would say, of the story. I mean, there is so involved, and like I tell people, it really could be a movie.
And we're going to segue from there. I want everybody to take a breath because we just heard a lot and there's a lot more to come. Um, I will say that your mom's case definitely opened the doors to a lot of changes in the way that domestic violence community responds towards other DV cases. Um, and that's it's not a great thing to call a role model, but it definitely changed how people looked at DV, discussed DV, and showed up for people who were survivors. So again, I'm going to encourage everybody to take a breath, and we are going to transition to Nikki's story, and then I'm going to come back and ask both of them about how they turned tragedy into advocacy. So thank you, Aisha, for sharing because you're right. It is a lot. And Nikki has a lot as well. And you said it could be a movie. We actually unfortunately did have a movie on Nikki's side. And so we're going to go on and step into the story that Nikki is going to share with us about her sister, Tamika.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. I want to at first just thank Black Woman Revolt for giving me this opportunity to speak, not only to bring awareness to domestic violence, but at any and every time to honor my sister and her memory and her life and legacy. So there's so many things that Ayesha was saying. Thank you for your story that I can relate to, that my family can relate to. So very familiar. So my name is Nicole Minnis. Close family and friends call me Nikki. I'm a native of San Francisco, born and raised in the Ingleside district. Grew up with Pam. We were neighbors and friends. So this is very much an honor to me. I'm also a mother of 4 adult children, and I'm a registered nurse at San Francisco General Hospital, working in labor and delivery, working in women's health. I'm constantly triggered and reminded of domestic violence, and I have to advocate for my patients. And of course, it's a personal level for me where I lost my sister. Her name was Tamika McNorton, and on July 22nd, 2006, her life was stolen by her husband. She lived in Daly City at the time. We were Her best friend had passed away, and we were planning to go to her funeral that morning. Now, my sister was very punctual. She was on time. She was about business, and she was to give the eulogy at her best friend's funeral, who passed away of cancer. By the way, my sister Tamika was 31 years old. We could not get a hold of her that morning. The whole family was to caravan to Concord for the funeral. We could not get a hold of her. It was not like her at all. So we all eventually, with multiple attempts, not able to contact her, drove to the funeral in Concord, thinking that she just, went ahead of us and that we would find her there. When we got to the funeral, she was not there. Her best friend Wendy's family hadn't heard from her. At that point, we panicked, all jumped back in our cars, and proceeded back to Daly City to her home, still trying to contact her multiple times with no luck. So eventually, we got a hold of her landlord, and he agreed to come to Daly City and unlock the home and assist us. But luckily, a family member suggested calling the police because she did have a history of domestic violence that I will get into. So the police met us there with the landlord, and that was a thankful thing because the scene was secured by law enforcement. And they did go into the home and found her deceased on her bedroom floor. Um, we were standing all at the garage, my mom, my sisters, multiple family members, and it just seemed like forever that for them to come back out of the house to let us know, um, doing this welfare check if she was okay. And I can just vividly remember standing at the garage and the police coming down, and I could hear his boots coming down the stairs. And it seemed like it took forever. And he just walked over to the garage door. He was white as a ghost. And he just said, "This is a crime scene." And he shut the garage. And I just remember my mom collapsing. And the whole family just went crazy. People were running in the streets, screaming, crying. Um, and I remember my uncle coming up to us. He had talked to the officer, and he just said, "She's no longer with us." And of course, we were all eventually gathered up and taken to the police station. And that's when life changed forever. And I just want to go back and just say that my sister, I'm one of 5 girls. I'm the oldest, and Tamika was the second oldest. So a period of time, it was just the two of us. We were happy little girls being raised in Ingleside with our mom, and we had a good life. We didn't even know we were poor. We had a really good life. We had friends, we had toys, we had a loving, close knit family, as we still do today. And she always knew what she wanted out of life. And when she was little, we would call her kind of stubborn, but she always knew what she wanted and she stood her ground. And as we grew, we would fight as sisters, and our three other little sisters came along, and we would fight as sisters. But as we grew older, we all were so close. She was my best friend. And our mom is a registered nurse, an amazing woman, and she was a good role model to us. And me and Tamika, we had a conversation and we were like, you know what? We want a better lives for ourselves. We should go to nursing school. We should help each other, be like mom. And that's something that we had a pact on and we did together. We would study together. She had a very unique relationship with all four of us, all four of her sisters, and very close knit. So we went to nursing school. We did that. We had dreams. She's like, we should, go move away, take our kids, have a better life. We just had plans. We had plans to travel and do things. She was a really good, loyal friend. All of her friends really loved her. She tutored people in nursing school. So smart, beautiful on the inside and the outside. A smile that just lit up the room. And then she also wanted love in her life. You know, Unfortunately, she met her husband in 1996, and he had kind of a shady background, but she thought she could help him. She was that type of person. She wanted to change him. She helped get him a job. She helped groom him. She soon got pregnant with her first son. In 1997, she gave birth to him. She had two sons and a daughter. Then they later married. Things started happening where he would, be very, very, like Ayesha said, very, very possessive, calling her repeatedly 30, 40 times in a row, interviewing the children. Where was your mother? Who was she with? Showing up to my home, looking through my closets, trying to find the man that I was hiding from her, from him, and that I was hooking her up with. All of this delusion was his world. Filling the hood of her car, saying, "Oh, I know you just came back from being with a man." And this went on for a while. We never knew that it would get this bad. There would be times where he would assault her. One time he assaulted her in her sleep. She had long, beautiful hair. He threatened to cut her hair off so she would be attractive to no one else. Following her, stalking her, showing up at events that we would go to. And one time in particular, she left her car light on. We were at a hotel at a friend's party, and he said, "Oh, I see that the car light was on." We get back to the car, the light was on, proving that he was there stalking her. There was police reports made of him breaking into the home and assaulting her. And then eventually, she had had enough. There was a lot of back and forth, and of course, concerned as a family. There was one incident where was cornering her and about to assault her, and I came over. My other sister, Tani, was there. She was pregnant. I ran over. I only lived 10 minutes away. I ran over to the home and to her aid, which I would often do. And he laughed when we got there. And he said, "Oh, you thought your pregnant sisters could save you." He said those exact words. So it was definitely escalating. So finally, she decided enough was enough. Not to mention, he was an alcoholic. And we found out a drug abuser. She said, "This is enough." So she went and filed for divorce. She did it on her own. She came and told me, and she said, "I filed for divorce. This is it. I'm leaving. I want him to have supervised visits with the children, but I'm done." Um, and I was proud of her. We, as a family, were proud of her and we supported her. And unfortunately, that's the most dangerous time for a woman. So that morning of the funeral, I had talked to her the night before. We were all planning to meet up. Everything seemed and appeared to be fine. Um, and he took her life that morning because he was losing control. It was over. He no longer had control over her. She was a registered nurse. He was very jealous of that. He thought that was a slap in the face to him, whereas she was trying to better her family and uplift herself, succeed herself, and inadvertently helping him also because he was her husband. So he would be benefiting from that as well. And the devastation of losing her has devastated my family. My poor mother, she is the shell of the woman that she used to be. She took the three children, she raised them. The second and third murder of my sister was going through two trials where he was convicted both times. To this very day, he is still trying to get out of prison. Any chance that any story he can make up, anyone else that he can blame. Um, his two boys heard my sister screaming that morning when he stabbed her to death, and my baby niece was in the bed with her. The two boys had to testify against their father, and they helped put him away. And he even tried to say the children were lying, or that we, planted the information in their head, and used his own two children to try to gain his freedom and not take accountability for what he has done. But fortunately, he is still in prison. He received 25 years to life, which, in my opinion, is not long enough. But that's the punishment for the state of California. I testified against him. I will do that until the day I die. I will go to court every court date. I am her voice, and within my own pain, and I had to figure out, how could I go on? How can I be there for my kids? How can I recover from this? And I have chose to turn pain into purpose. I am now, I consider myself an advocate, not only a nurse to my patients that are suffering from domestic violence in my own personal journey. I go and speak to City College of San Francisco nursing students about domestic violence. I am an alumni from that school. I fundraise, I donate. I did speak once for you, Pam, years ago in a small, intimate support group setting. And that gives me the strength, and it gives me purpose. And I suffer from survivor's guilt. And I think, why couldn't I have helped her? But if I can help somebody else, or just one person, it's bringing beauty from ashes. And yeah, I'm her voice, and I'll continue to talk and remember her and talk about her, and do all that I can for this horrible cause that, affects all socioeconomic backgrounds. And thank you so much for letting me tell my story.
Again, I want to thank both of you, and I'm going to ask us all to kind of take a minute and pause and take a breath because, as I said, we are in Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but we need to be aware 365, 366 days on those leap year days or years. And I want to touch on what Ayesha said and something that Nicole said. This doesn't just impact immediate family members, this impacts communities. And I always refer to domestic violence as a silent epidemic because we don't talk about it. I remember when we were younger and we were kids, Nikki, and we'd be like, oh, somebody would, have a fight or whatever, and you might hear a parent having an argument with somebody outside the house, and we're like, oh, we don't do domestic. It's time to go move to the next house because that's not our business. We shouldn't be involved in that. And Tammy's death definitely changed my perspective on stepping in and getting involved and being an advocate. I think those of us who are still here, Ayesha, and your family members, we all have a responsibility to be their voice and to help others who may not know that there's a resource available to help them get out, or to help them to get a restraining order, or to help them get into a shelter, or to talk about the relationship you're in doesn't look so healthy, or how can we have a better, healthier type of relationship. And I'm a survivor, and so I can say that things weren't always healthy in my household, in my relationships, but in seeing others and identifying that within myself, really talking to people and saying it doesn't have to end this way. We have to show people that there are other options. And I want to thank both of you for your current advocacy. I'm going to step to Nicole because her first major speaking engagement was at Riley Center when I worked as the outreach coordinator. We were at Google down on the Embarcadero, and she first told Tammy's story, and I was so proud that she was able to keep it together and share the story. But Ayesha, I'm equally as proud of you because when, like I say, that 2-minute clip of Black Women Revolt literally changed my life. I gave up a hefty salary at the University of San Francisco, and decided I wanted to do this work and went to Riley Center with a pay reduction. And at that point, I decided, even in that pay reduction, it's more important to me to make sure that we are doing something culturally specific to help our community, because a lot of times we just don't talk about it. More so than a lot of other nationalities, we don't talk about it, and it's important because we have such high statistics that are involved in domestic violence, that we have to get it out there and let people know people will support you, and don't be afraid to say, I need help. Part of that is the snitch rule in Black community, where we don't like to talk about things outside of our homes, but that's what we have to do, and I'm here for it. And I thank both of you for your current advocacy and being part of our board and helping us to make sure that we stay in community and share in community. And I want Ayesha to talk a little bit about what you've done in terms of advocacy, since losing your mother.
First of all, let me say, Nikki, you tore me smooth up. Okay, the little bit that I had holding together, I was like, my God, because the stories are so similar and there's so many parallels. So, I appreciate even hearing about your sister. And so what have I done since then? I just like Nikki, and most of you all know, lend my voice to anything pertaining to domestic violence. And so that means, speaking. Um, we've been on a few shows to, bring about awareness when it comes to domestic violence. I would say, just personally, as an educator, making sure that I talk to fellow educators and students about teen dating violence, and then I think it's one thing when you're advocating and you're saying, oh, you need to be in a healthy relationship, but then when someone hears a story like mine's, or Nikki, or they meet you under different circumstances, so they're used to you being a nurse that's smiling, and whatever the case may be, and you're trying to advocate and say, well, you need to make better choices. And so it's almost like, you don't know what you're talking about. No, I do know what I'm talking about. So let me tell you, let me bring you into my world so that you know that I can validate what I'm saying. And so a lot of times I don't really like to talk about that when I'm trying to share, but then that always adds an extra layer. So definitely advocacy, any group that I can be a part of, to spread the word. My social media, I often, do share different stories about my mom on my social media as well. Um, and I think that I also just in showing others that while my mom is, this, I always say this is her story. However, I feel that even showing people how resilient myself and my family have been is also, lending a voice to the situation. And then I just often tell people, listen, you think you have a second chance? My mom didn't. And and so I do a lot of like shock value. Like, I still have a picture of my mom's casket. It's specifically for that particular reason. Like, I will show you, this is where my mom is right now in this blue box. She thought potentially she can have a second shot at it, and she didn't. So, I mean, these are real choices that I know are challenging, but um, these are the things that hopefully I always, tell people, whenever you're in those situations and there's a choice to either leave or stay. Hopefully you remember my face. Hopefully you remember my voice. Hopefully you remember my tears, because my mom didn't get a second shot at it. Um, so that is what I have been doing. I often come up with ideas and want to, like, do them, and then they just kind of just don't get out the chat, as far as like, like larger things. But using my voice, like you said, the commercial documentary, um, speaking when I can, sharing my mom's story of losing her, but also like the resilience, and then letting people know like this is real. This really can happen, and that I would hate for your family to have to go through what my family has had to go through, since then, because there's so many things that have happened, with mental health and losing my grandmother. I mean, just all of that. So to take it serious, and to not be judgmental, also has been huge. But and then my family and friends know you can't really like don't you can't yell too much around me, you can't talk too loud. Don't tell me about a relationship that's not going that's abusive. Because I'm gonna send you resources. I am going to call Beverly. I used to do that a lot. And like hey, what should I do? They're in a different area. I know they're not in San Francisco. Just like collaborating, partnership, advocating, making sure that my mom's name, never goes away, that people know that she matters, um, is really my like daily goal of, and making her proud, and making sure that people know that domestic violence, toxic relationships are real, and that fatalities are even more real.
Yeah, thank you for that. That is something that I want to hold to. We have when we started Black Women Revolt and opened up the first storefront, thank goodness for Women Inc. allowing us to share space in their office. We had three pictures, and one is of Aisha's mom, one is of Tammy, and one is of Jafria and Lentisa's mom. And we call them our three reasons, and why we do this work, why we're open, why we are in community, why we want people to know that there is help, um, even when people didn't think that they needed help. But knowing that there's a space that you can go to for a resource, there's a space that you can go to get away, there's a space for a restraining order, there's a space to ask for that extra police protection during those transitional hours when you've decided that enough is enough and I've had enough. Um, I thank both of you for sharing your story. I thank both of you for um, keeping your family members alive and sharing this story, because storytelling is what gets to people. These are not fictional stories. These are stories of real life people who breathed, who worked, who were loved, who contributed to community, who had magnificent children and siblings and grandchildren and nieces and nephews, and they are never to be forgotten. And we promise that we will not forget. And as Nikki has said, and as Ayesha has said, with every breath, as long as we have one, or as long as I have one, I know this will be the work that I'm going to continue to do. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about resources. What did you find most helpful? Um, I heard Aisha say, SFDVC showing up, and Bev is a champion unto herself, because I look to her as my mentor, and you know, um, definitely know that she is going to ride until the wheels fall off. But what resources did you all experience in community that were helpful for you and your families? And I'll let either one of you go.
I would say, like Aisha said, the court system. I didn't always have a good view of it, and not definitely on a personal view, a personal experience with it. But they really rallied around our family. The court liaison. She's like a family member. Calls my mom. They talk personally. The support services, therapy services they provided for the children, for the family. That was a long-standing for my mother and her three children. Support groups have really helped. Um, for me, working in as a nurse, I'm part of the San Francisco Pregnancy Village, which is part of the city, where we provide prenatal services, maternity clothes, childcare services, pediatric services. We have food and events, and we come together every month, 9 months out of the year, to provide that to Black and Brown women in the Hunters Point area. Black Women Revolt is part of that, and I really advocated to get a domestic violence organization involved um, in that great program. Talking to nursing students, like you said, spreading the word, donating to organizations on domestic violence, on behalf of domestic violence. I've told my personal story to some of my patients. I don't always do it because it can get very emotional, but specific cases where it's very, very serious and dangerous. And I have, shared my story with patients, and just having, having the strength to do that. And um, it's an ongoing process, with the kids, they have long-term effects, her 3 children to this day, because of what happened to their mother. As a nurse, just always advocating, and as a surviving family member, this is something that we will carry for the rest of our lives. So just always talking about it, and stopping to smell the roses, and knowing how important life is. And we also had to deal with the media, because it was high media coverage. She was found deceased in her home back in 2006. Everyone was talking about that nurse that was killed in her home. So dealing with it, like Ayesha said, on a public level, trying to, and a personal level, it was very surreal. The news media coming to our home, and then a documentary. Well, it wasn't even a documentary. It was like one of those shows. I can't even call the name of it right now, where they talk about Black people who have been murdered. And my sister's episode was "Till Death Do Us Part," and they told us they were coming to San Francisco.
It was very skewed.
Yes, they came. They didn't even ask us. They just said, we were like, "How did you find out about this?" "Oh, it's public information. We're coming to do this TV show. Would you like to be a part of it?" So, of course, my mother was not, did not want to do. It was too emotional for her. So my sister and I, we interviewed. They came to my home, interviewed us for multiple hours, and then they took the story and twisted it to what they wanted it for their narrative, and left out a lot of crucial parts, right out lied about a lot of things. And it was very hurtful to my family. And we had no control over that. But there was a lot of myths and lies. And to this day, it's being aired, but I think on BET. But yeah, that was very hard for our family. But just on so many levels, this is something that's never going to go away. But I've had to just stop and smell the roses when life's good, and then find ways to put my heart and our lives back together.
Thank you. Aisha, I feel the same. That public scrutiny with the media. Again, this doesn't stop with just you. It doesn't stop with Nikki. There are grandchildren now, and there are nieces and nephews who are impacted. And then there are children who are going to hear about the life of their great grandmother who
Mhm.
was taken. And so, again, we are living legacy makers and voices. And so I applaud you for keeping the good things alive and for speaking up for them and making sure that people know that it doesn't have to end this way. And if we work together and we're sharing stories and we're sharing resources and just helping, it doesn't have to end this way. I'm going to give you both a moment to have a final thought, and then we're going to close up. We usually end at one, and it's exactly one, but I want both of you to be able to say something, a lesson learned, or how you would like us to remember your sister and your mother.
I'll go first then. What do I want to leave with? Um, that we need each other. We need community. Um, and I mean, for us, it was actually vital um, because it wasn't just my mother. It wasn't, just my grandmother's daughter. Um, she was a friend, and she just it meant so much to the community when we lost her. that I felt like there wasn't a way to keep the community out, if that makes sense. To not kind of go along with allowing them to be there with us. And so it very much so for me um, instills and really solidifies that we need each other. And in those situations, when you're in those type of relationships, that's the first thing that the person is trying to take away from you is the community, is you being able to talk to your sister on a day-to-day basis and like take that control from you. And so I feel like, again, even though he did do that to my mom, that we were able to shine a light on the fact that we need each other, that there are so many layers to this, that to not be judgmental about people and their situations and what they're going through, and putting your mouth to, well, I mean, if it were me, I would just leave, and well, it's not you. So since it's not you,
That's
you
simple.
shouldn't have anything to say. Let's just be honest about the situation. But so I would definitely leave with, we need each other. We need to support each other. We need to be non-judgmental. We need to, also come with resources, not just sitting talking about the problems all the time. And then the major piece for my family, and well, I'll speak for me because I have a sibling that struggles with this, but it's forgiveness. That's a much bigger picture, was to forgive, so that he wouldn't then have control over me as
Mhm.
well. And so, if I could leave that, and when I say community, love is a part of that, and love shouldn't hurt. Period. I don't care how you slice it, dice it. It shouldn't hurt. And so, to have community, to feel the love, and to also forgive, so that they don't have control over our lives as well, moving forward. Because I feel like I'm a survivor. I mean, even though I was not in that with her specifically, I'm surviving losing her, um, and I'm getting through it with love, and being able to forgive him for what he's done. And I really appreciate you all allowing me the time to be here and to honor my mom in this way. And anytime I can, I am here for sure.
Thank you, Aisha. Okay, Nikki, what are your thoughts? Nicole, excuse me.
Either one. Oh, I can relate to so much to what Ayesha said. Um, Also, I think about resilience, and you can overcome so much more than you think, especially when things are out of your control. Love, like she said, love should not hurt. Um, Having power in this tragedy that happened to me, having the power to do something positive about it, where I had no power before. I had no power in the situation. Forgiveness, I'm working on that. I know what that means, and I know it has nothing to do with him, and it has to do, with releasing myself and going on, because he's taken so much from me and my family. Not there yet, but I'm working on that. And just talking about her, not just continuing to talk about her, and like you said, not judging, and not letting others' judgment affect me, because people have a lot to say. There's been people that I know and people that I don't know that have come up to me and told me their stories, or have ran to me with their concerns for their loved one. And it just has opened up the door to so many ways to help others. And I can't help her, and she is gone now, and I still have to come to terms with that. I'm still on a healing journey, and I will be the rest of my life. But um, just anybody that I can impact. And I'm always nervous when I talk about it. And 19 years later, I still get emotional. But as I speak, I feel power. And that helps me. It helps me a lot. So I'll just continue to share my story. Ideal world, I would love to do this. I love nursing, but I would love to do this even more than nursing. And it just gives me purpose.
Yeah.
Thank
Well, I
you.
remember that first talk where you were like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. And I don't remember,
Mhm.
and again, I still stand very proud and you have grown, both of you have grown in ways, in public as well as in private that I think a lot of people don't think about, know, or understand. But thank you for sharing yourselves and for sharing your stories and sharing your loved ones' stories and serving on a board with such a difficult journey and path to get through. And we just love and appreciate both of you. And thank you for being here. And thank you for all that you continue to do. I'm going to segue out of this and say we hope to see you all next month. It'll be a lighter topic. We'll be talking with Candizi. It's a birthing project that's run by RAMS. So we'll be meeting with Dr. J. Watkins next month here on Black Women Revolt Against Domestic Violence's Crucial Conversations. We'll be looking at birth weights and birth issues around Black children. And one of the things that we will probably address lightly will be the rate of children and fatalities in children Black children specifically, or parents who have experienced domestic violence. And so we look forward to having you all here next week. Don't let this be the end of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, because again, it's a 365, 366 day a year journey. And thank you for being on that journey with us. And we will see you all next month. Thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Pam.
Thank you
Snap,
all.
clap.
Thank you,
Thank
Ayesha.
you
Thank
all.
you, Nikki.
Thank you.
Love you, Ayesha.
Beverly.
Thank
One
you.
of my faves.
Love you.
Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
This was great, Pam. Dr. Pam, this was great.
This was great. Thank you because you were here and because you were here, Nikki. Thank y'all both for
Thank you.
being here and sharing with community. I'm going to log us out and then put it on my Facebook, tag you all, and then put it in the page because I don't know why it didn't transition over, but it told me it couldn't. So we're going to go on and get it out here now and make sure people can see it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Thank y'all for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.